Hello and welcome to this episode of The Rest is Entertainment with me, Marina Hyde.
And me, Richard Osman. Hello, Marina.
Hello, Richard. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really, really well. Now, this week,
we're talking about faith-based films because it had a very good run of success recently at the box office. We're also
it's essentially God at the box office.
God at the box office.
And talking of God, we're also talking about...
God's like the family genre. Seriously, it's the only thing doing well.
We're going to talk about Reacher, and we're going to talk about... two people involved in Reacher, Lee Child and Nick Santoro, the guy behind the Reacher show. I'm going to tell you all about those two.
I can't wait for that. And Glen Powell has released a sauce line.
This is, do you know what? We were chatting earlier in the week saying, that's good. We wanted to talk about God in the cinema, and I wanted to talk about Nick Santoro. And we're going, what would be an interesting third one? And then he just sent me the thing saying that Glen Powell had released a new sauce. So I go, well, there's our third item.
I mean... First of all, let's talk about faith-based God at the box office, as you put it.
And this, do you know what? I didn't think about it. It was quite themed, isn't it?
It is quite, it is quite themed. And in fact, Easter weekend is part of it. But last week, 3 of the top 10 US cinematic box office spots were taken up by faith-based things. And I'm saying things because, Richard, you're going to be thrilled to hear, only one of them is a film.
Wow.
Which is The King of Kings, which we'll come on to in just a second. Episodes 2 and 3 of this season of The Chosen, which we've talked about on the podcast before, which is the sort of long-form drama series about the life of Christ. Those have been put into cinemas. You know, they love to bring people in. 2 of them, episodes 2 and 3, that's how many have been out so far as 3. They were all in the charts. That is it's incredible. They just put one episode out and people come. So King of Kings is made by Angel Studios, who used to be involved in The Chosen, but they now do that separately. But they made Sound of Freedom, which was that.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've seen Sound of Freedom.
Okay, it was massive. It was it's like a sort of search and rescue thriller about a guy US government sort of agent who rescues people from children from Colombian sex traffickers.
But like God-based.
Yeah, I mean, and some people thought vaguely QAnon-based, but it made 250 million at the global box office. It became this surprise hit. We can come to the story of that in a bit. But The King of Kings was number 2 to Minecraft, and I don't need to tell you, being number 2 to Minecraft is no shame. Kenneth Branagh is the voice. It's animated, and it's
Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah, he's the voice
involved.
of Dickens. It's Dickens animating.
Sorry.
It's Dickens telling the story of Christ. Now, hang on a second.
Sorry, Dickens telling the story of Christ.
Yeah, I know that sounds, in a sort of very much a kind of, he's telling the story of Christ to his kind of slightly doubting son. A little bit like the relationship between Peter Falk and Fred Savage in The Princess Bride, right?
In The Princess Bride.
Yeah, in The Princess Bride. But Charles Dickens did actually write a version of Jesus' life called The Life of Our Lord to sort of educate his children at a certain point. Anyway, but that is the concept of this film. And it's got lots of great people doing voices, like Forrest Whitaker, Mark Hamill, half the Thursday Murder Club, by the way, are doing it. Ben Kingsley's in it. Pierce Brosnan is Pontius Pilate, which sounds...
Is he? Is he?
Interesting casting, but, it's voice casting, it's different.
Makes him even cooler.
Yeah. Okay.
By the way,
when Oscar Isaac is Jesus.
Oscar Isaac is Jesus. Okay, listen. Fair enough.
Anyway, so it's a hugely successful film, this. It's taken...
And it's animation.
Yeah. So it's very interesting how they do this, okay? So they acquired this film in terms of concept and everything from this a South Korean director who's called Song Ho Jang, and he's also a visual effects artist.
Sorry, there's a South Korean director, Dickens, telling the story of the Bible in animation with Pierce Brosnan as Pontius Pilate.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's second only to Jason Momoa doing improv. So it's very, very popular, Richard. Yeah. Anyhow, but it's interesting how Angel Studios have built themselves anyway. First of all, they are also a streaming platform, but they create their own stuff as well. When they created Sound of Freedom and things like that, they have this thing called the Angel Guild. So they have people who sign up and they're members. There were 100,000 of them back then. They crowdfund for distribution and marketing cash. And so what you have, so they have this sort of very engaged audience anyway. And their films do, there was a point where I think Sound of Freedom was something like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes because people are so engaged. Remember, people are thinking. Now, that Angel Guild now has 1 million members. And do you know what they do? I mean, we keep talking about this.
Meet up.
They ask them about projects and they say, this is how it's more than market research. Once you sign up and you become a member, you can vote on projects, you can sort of offer notes on ideas. They say, and then it's sort of equity crowdfunding.
What do you think about the idea of Pierce Brosnan as Pontius Pilate?
Yeah.
And they're all, we love
but
it.
I tell you what, having 1 million people who you know are very engaged, it's a huge part of it's a massive part of their decision to greenlight or not. And the thing about it is, I mean, I know we keep saying this, but it is a question, once again, saying, I wonder what people would like to watch.
Yeah.
And these people make a big, feed in lots of different ways. Obviously, it's very democratic. Faith-based things are not my cup of tea necessarily, but you can't deny that this model is doing brilliantly for them. And it's really interesting. Sort of, you talk to fans, asking what they'd like to see. They say, their exact words on it, we think the wisdom of the crowd, their collective intelligence is much more accurate and trustworthy than a few powerful producers. Well, I mean, they've if you look at some of the flops this year, I don't know, that I was thinking about that All-Tone Nights. The Chosen, they've only had 3 episodes of it in movie theatres so far. It's already made more than $40 million. Okay, already. That's episode 3 of a however many episode series, okay? That sort of All-Tone Nights, which was David Zaslav, who's the head of Warner Brothers Discovery, pushed this film to be made. It's got Robert De Niro in it. It's very, very bad. It's written by Nick Pileggi, who wrote Goodfellas, but he's now 92. He just happens to be Zaslav's neighbour in the Hamptons. And so he just pushed this movie all the way through. The Chosen, 3 episodes of television have made more than 4 or 5 times as much as what All-Tone Nights made.
And doesn't David Zaslav get paid about $430 million a year as well?
No matter what happens to the share price, as we keep discovering, his pay goes up tens of millions every year.
It's clever.
I'd love to be on that gravy train, I must tell you. It doesn't matter what happens to them.
I'm absolutely shocked that he doesn't believe in God more than he does. You think if I was David Zaslav, all I would do is make just Thank You Lord. Every film would be called Thank You Lord.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it would probably be doing. Warner Brothers have had a big hit with Minecraft, but otherwise it might be doing better than quite a lot of their slate.
Isn't Minecraft like Christianity? Yeah. If you think about it,
it's all building something, isn't it? I can't continue this, but yes. So this kind of democratized way of doing it is very interesting, and it is very successful for them. Angel Studios they're having done lots of smaller projects. They're now doing these very big things. So they had King of Kings, which has done absolutely brilliantly. Yeah. And then for, I think, Thanksgiving weekend, that they've got David, which is the story of David. And remember, all the IP is free, Richard.
That's what, David Attenborough? You can...
No, David from the Bible.
David out of the Bible.
Of versus Goliath fame.
Do you know what? It's such a great business model. Isn't it? The IP is free. There's loads of it. It's got an engaged audience.
Who want to pay, by the way, can I just say that they wanted $60 million for David, and they got immediately $50 million via crowdfunding. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But if you've got 1 million members and they're really engaged and you say to them, we actually care what you think.
Yeah. The church have spent their money on worse things in their history.
So spent the money on. Come on, this is really This is good, clean fun.
I like it.
It's and then in terms of the marketing and the promo, you don't have to spend to get it in front of people. It's already in front of a big and engaged enough community to get the word out there. Going back to something like The Chosen, which they've put 2 episodes out. Again, the idea of putting television in cinemas, which this community is doing, Richard.
Yeah,
okay,
but of course
they also do.
By the way, the amount of messages I've had saying,
so many people.
I wish I could have seen the last episode of the White Lotus in a cinema, or I wish I could. Just everyone wants to watch TV in the cinema with other people.
It's amazing how many messages I've had since we started semi-jokingly discussing this matter.
Yeah, I was never semi-jokingly.
I know. They've got these children's offers, like Children Go Free, or they have a thing called Pay It Forward, which means you can buy a ticket for someone who otherwise wouldn't see it. And so over Easter weekend, lots of cinemas have shown episodes 1 to 3 of The Chosen because they're doing it as a sort of, as a binge.
I'm trying to think of other groups who you could get together in that sort of way to crowdfund television. And there's actually not that many groups with that amount of people with that much commitment to the cause. It's quite a unique group of people, religious communities, isn't it?
Well, I mean, have you ever been to Comic-Con? I mean, they have a very engaged fan base.
Yes, but they absolutely all disagree with everybody else about everything.
They're incredibly disputatious. It's like, yes, or they just, everything has to be done exactly. But it's very interesting that the way they've managed to do it, but also just that feeling of not handing down well, I mean, handing down stone tablets really and say, here's your film, here's the film you're going to go and watch at the cinema, here's whatever.
But also that's a group of people, because the trouble with Comic-Con is if you wanted everyone to be involved in the film, a million different people would have a million different versions of doing it and would think they had the best version. The best thing with having religious backers is they believe in the omnipotent power of a creator.
Yeah.
Don't they? Of all people, I mean, they're the greatest exec producers of all time.
The IP is not disputed, bar the Book of Revelation, which may or may not be canon. I'm given to understand.
That'll probably be 2 films. I think it's super neat. It's definitely the way that things are going to be funded in future is communities of people. And they've got an absolute march on it because that community is already there and probably felt that they weren't being served with things that needed to be served with. And Angel Studios jumped in. And I mean, it's a thing of absolute beauty.
It's extraordinary. But also, can I just talk to you very briefly about something else, which is about, we're talking about religion in Hollywood, which, by the way, is not a completely godless place. And some people think it's becoming more religious, perhaps because that's where some of the money has gone to. Anyway, a friend of mine went along to a church that I think might be Peter Thiel's church. If it's not your church, this is not libelous, even though he'll sue over anything, but it really isn't libelous.
So Peter Thiel is the sort of godfather of the billionaires, right?
He's a PayPal founder, and he's had his money in all the other different places. And, does he or doesn't he use the blood of South Koreans to stay young? I think it's a no from him, but, the rumours persist.
People are saying it.
Yeah, people are saying that transfusions occur. I'm sure, as I say, he's very, very religious man.
It's just reported speech.
Yeah. I got this leaflet from it. She got me this leaflet and I absolutely loved it. I'm going to read you some of the things that they do. They've got an incognito prayer team. They pray for Hollywood decision makers and celebrities. So, by the way, I'm now signed up to all that because I wanted to see what all this was. I was like, this is too good to lose. You can get 90028 wristbands. Pray for the world's most influential zip code.
But when you say they're praying for Hollywood's decision makers, do you mean they're sort of just praying for moral guidance to the big studio heads? And I
literally had my latest email from them yesterday. So shall I give you an example? Okay, so they often tell me which executives to pray for. Coachella, they were saying it's the concert. They're saying it's very exciting. Coachella's begun and it's all whatever. But the concert's also known for drugs, sex, and rock and roll. So let's pray for the attendees to feel the heart of God while they're there. Let's make it the most spirit-filled Coachella in history.
It's super hot as well, Coachella.
Yeah,
it's like it's in the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
That's so I would be praying for water.
I'd be praying for a thunderbolt. I think it's quite a cursed event. But I had a recent one telling me to pray for Justin Baldoni. Don't worry, I'm already doing it. But saying because he's from the wrong faith. He's Baha'i, and pray for him for that reason. Also, because I think everyone's in a bit of difficulty on that particular legal case.
They sent you an email.
Yeah. We've all noted the personnel changes at Amazon Studio. Jen Salk is out, whatever, whoever's. Please pray for the following executives.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, wow. I mean to. I haven't done it yet, but,
Perhaps we'll do it.
Imagine actually dialing into the Almighty and say, hi, I just want to... Courtney Valenti's a really amazing film executive. I just want to make sure that the slate next year is just moving in the general direction of, if not Christian, then at least pre-Christian.
Yeah, it'd be lovely if they could get a Chalamet project as well. I feel like that'll be important. That's, talk about wasting your prayers.
Yeah.
I mean, God's can't listen to everything all the time.
Yeah, I mean, really.
Save it for the big ones.
Pray for the world's most influential zip code. No, thank you. Perhaps we should wind this up because somebody, when we were talking about, obviously we've been talking about watching TV in cinemas, and then when I went to see Minecraft, we saw that someone had a church.
Yes.
In the cinema.
Oh my God! And now everyone's got.
A very nice person has written in, Pastor Mark Smith.
I don't know how to pronounce that. Pastor or pastor?
Pastor. I say pastor, but I had to teach myself not to say Glastonbury. I mean, I'm just.
Did you say Glastonbury?
No, I've taught myself not to.
Well, I would hope so.
I mean, I hate me more than anyone, so don't worry about it.
I say Coachella.
Coachella. Yeah. So Pastor Mark Smith, he says, I pastor a church in an Odeon here in Dublin. We've been in the building since the pandemic. Initially, the cinema reached out to us and other churches to see if we needed event space because they were struggling. We've been meeting here ever since. The cinema has been brilliant. In fact, they're putting on the new animated movie King of Kings for us after our service this Sunday. This is a win-win. The only problem with God Live, as Richard says, is that the cinema is a crappy place to sing in. It's like being in a cathedral with walls made of wool. It's quite depressingly different.
That, by the way, is another great idea, a cathedral with walls made of wool. I had a message from Frank Cottrell-Boyce, the brilliant children's writer and screenwriter and one of the architects of the 2012 opening ceremony, all that stuff. proud Liverpudlian, and he said there was a Liverpool cinema 60s or 70s called the JC, which is very down at heel, which they essentially just turned into a Catholic confessional, and it was open all the time. He said, but they didn't take the screen or the seats out. He said, so even now, sometimes he'll be in an Odeon and he'll genuflect when he gets to the end of a row. Everyone loves the cinema. Everyone loves the seats. Everyone loves the screen. Everyone loves the pick and mix. Show different things. There's a rights issues, of course there are, but there's people who can deal with that sort of thing. Not me. I mean,
then we might have to accept that the religious programming people have got there first, and it is actually a good idea.
Yeah, it's got to come. I mean, just imagine whatever show you want to watch this week. You go, or just go out for a drink with your mates and go and watch 8 episodes of Friends back to back.
All right. On that note, shall we go to a break?
By the way, can we talk about Easter very quickly? Because I was watching The Apprentice, the final of The Apprentice this season, which I rather enjoyed. I rather enjoyed this season of The Apprentice. I mean, it is what it is, The Apprentice. But it makes me think that Easter, as a religious festival, it's like a religious festival that's been invented by a losing team on The Apprentice. It was about the resurrection of Christ, yeah. But what's the main thing about it? Chocolate eggs is the main thing about it. Okay, and when will we do it? I mean, no one knows. Ever.
No one ever knows. However, it is 4 days.
Yeah.
And you can't knock it.
And you don't know when you're supposed to eat the eggs.
Yeah.
Anyway, all I'm saying is imagine that pitch.
You've pitched enough for today.
God, why do people keep
unless
saying
you happen
that
to be doing any adverts in the immediate vicinity of this when I've just gone over to the break. But yes, then you haven't pitched enough. See you after the break.
This episode is brought to you by Sky, where you can watch the highly anticipated second season of the award-winning The Last of Us.
Richard, I am very excited that The Last of Us is back on our screens. I watched the entire first series. It was emotional. It was bleak. It was brilliant TV. It follows Joel, played by Pedro Pascal, who is tasked with escorting Ellie, played by Bella Ramsey, who's a teenage girl. She's immune to a deadly infection, and he has to transport her across a post-apocalyptic America in which they face these infected clickers and much more.
And season 2, I think, picks up 5 years later. They're living in a community of survivors.
Time jump.
Time jump. It's probably 5 years since they filmed the first one. So it's fair enough, isn't it?
Now, from what I hear, my nerves, the second season sounds like it's going to be even more intense. There's conflict brewing everywhere, not just on the outside with the infected and all the different factions among them, but inside between Joel and Ellie too.
Yes, if you're into emotional gut punches, high stakes world building and brilliant performances, this show is for you.
Watch the brand new series of the award-winning The Last of Us, available on Sky now. Last week, the Nielsen figures came out, and we learned that Reacher on Amazon Prime is the biggest show on streaming by about 1 million miles. That's not a technical. Actually, they do measure it in something even more stupid, which is billions of minutes viewed or something.
Yes, correct.
And it's 1 million miles ahead of everything else.
It is. So we're going to talk a bit about Reacher. At the end of this, I might go through the rest of the top 10, actually, because there's a couple of interesting little things to spot in there. But Reacher, there's 2 people I want to talk about. I want to talk about a man named James Grant, and I want to talk about a man named Nick Santoro. Now, James Grant is the birth name of Lee Child, the author of the Reacher novels. Called himself Child. He says he called it everything Lee Child says. He's so smart. You just think, you've because he says, I called myself Child, so I sat between Agatha Christie and Raymond Chandler on the shelves. And you think, no, come on, Lee. You said that afterwards. No, he said he's called Lee Child because there was a thing. Was it a Renault called Le Car? Yeah. And their family used to call it Lee Car, and every time they saw something with Le in front of it, they would pronounce it Lee. And so his daughter, he used to call Lee Child, and so he called himself Lee Child. But it's a good name. It's short, really fits on the front of a book as well. Now, Lee used to work at Granada Television, was fired in the late 90s, and thought, what am I going to do? So I thought, I'll write a book. And 28 years later is the biggest selling adult novelist in the world. He starts his new book. Again, I don't know if this is true, Lee. He says, every year I start writing my new book on the anniversary of the day I was fired. And you think, maybe you do. Maybe do, but what if you're on holiday or like you got the dentist on that day or something?
Can't you just write 3 words? Then you've technically begun. And anyway, I like that as a sort of origin story. That's why he's so brilliant. Yeah. Because even if those 2 things are not true, he came up with it. Now I try and write a book a year, and it is listen, it's not mining, but it's hard. And he did 24 books in 24 years. His brother now does them, and he has. You'd be unsurprised to hear. Got
huge properties in Wyoming, New York, Sussex. If ever you talk about anywhere, he's got a house there. Flies around the world on private jets and all this stuff. But every attempt to turn Reacher into a huge hit on the big screen hadn't really worked. There've been various abortive attempts, and then most famously, they did make a Reacher film.
Jack
Cruise.
Reacher, wasn't it?
Jack Reacher, the film was called, and Tom Cruise played Jack Reacher. And it is one of those things, you can absolutely mess about with source material, but the key thing about Reacher is he's 6'5".
Man-mountain.
He really is. He's like just omnicompetent and amazingly brilliant at everything. And Tom Cruise is amazingly brilliant in lots of ways, but he is not Jack Reacher. The name Reacher, by the way, do you know where that comes from?
No.
Lee is also very tall, not as tall as me, but who is. And in the supermarket once, he reached up and got something for somebody, and his wife said, "Oh, if you ever do lose your job, you'd be a very good professional reacher." And he thought,
that's
Reacher would be a good name. But
that's brilliant.
It happened to me where there was a woman in Waitrose, and she said to me, "Also, could you reach the sugar from the top shelf for me?" And I said, "Oh, of course, I got it for her." And she said, "Can I get anything for you while I'm down here?"
Oh my God, that is the most perfect Waitrose interaction ever.
Yeah, isn't it just?
That's just, yeah.
So he wrote all of these novels, all of which are extraordinary. They had lots of, adaptations that didn't quite work until a man called Nick Santoro came along. And Nick Santoro is the guy behind the Amazon Prime version of Reacher. We're now on season 3. I was having a big discussion with some very, very funny actors and writers who weren't enjoying it, and I love it. And then lots of other actors and writers joined in and said they loved it as well. So it is what it is.
Some people will say, and that the criticism of Reacher is that, by the way, he doesn't say much, which is I sort of love as the sort of leading character. But that it's towns that can't deal with their own problems, and he comes in and
it's
he fixes it. Yeah. Yes, but I mean, lots of things have been formulaic forever. But sometimes people say that that's simplistic.
Yeah, and listen, Columbo was formulaic, but it was still the best TV show ever made. No, I love Reacher, and it's genuinely funny. There's some very, listen, there's a lot of, you have to look away sometimes during the fights, but the funny bits are properly funny. But Nick Santoro is an interesting guy. He used to be a lawyer, didn't want to be a lawyer like most lawyers. I know some lawyers do, and then he wrote an episode of The Sopranos. He wrote a spec script for The Sopranos, got called in. His first ever published thing on television was an episode of The Sopranos, the greatest television show ever made. In season 4, he co-wrote an episode of that, and then went on to do lots of episodes of Law and Order, which is a big breeding ground for American writers. So he'd done something unbelievably blue chip in The Sopranos, and then he does this sort of telly that absolutely packs them in. Yeah. As you often say, the sort of TV people actually want to watch. So after that, his agent is going, "Well, look, you can do another season of Law and Order." He said, "I'd like to do something new. I'd like to branch out." And so what should I do? So his agent gave him every single pilot from that season in America, and the one he liked most was Prison Break. He said, "I saw that, and I thought that's the one that could run." And then he came up with his own show called Scorpion, which I've not seen, but I'm going to tell you pre-see it for you, and I would love to watch this. 4 super geniuses and a woman who has to sort of stand in the middle of them and teach them emotional intelligence. It's like he described it as being like Big Bang Theory meets CSI. So you think, well, that sounds amazing, doesn't it? So he's always done that thing of what's the big mainstream thing, but how can we make it slightly funnier, which is why Reacher is such a huge deal. But the most interesting thing Nick Santoro did in the middle of all of this, and by the way, this is just to say that there are a million different ways to get into the world of having a big hit television show, and everyone's way through is very, very different, particularly in the case of Nick Santoro, because the next thing he did was he invented the reality dating show Beauty and the Geek. So, which is beautiful woman and geeky guy.
It's all up there in the title.
Team up and do challenges. Ran for 5 seasons in America. They've done it a couple of times over here. David Mitchell used to be the VO. So if you want to know the connection between Jack Reacher and David Mitchell, there it is in one step. Interestingly, they brought it back. Do you want to know how social mores have changed in the UK over the last 16 years? So in 2006, so they get usually a beautiful woman and a geeky guy, and then they describe them as something or other. So in 2006, one of the teams, in fact, the winning team was Terry Marquez, page 3 girl, with John Gethin, theologian. 2022, you think, well, times have changed, surely. And here's your team: Saskia Mastin, cheerleader; JB James, Lego creator. Some things never change.
That's lovely.
Yeah, isn't it just? He also wrote a film called Long Shots, which was directed by Fred Durst, the lead singer of Limp Bizkit. Yeah. So he's had a hell of a career, Nick Santora.
My goodness, that is eclectic.
Isn't it eclectic? That's the thing, is there's a million different ways into the business. If you look at Craig Mazin, who did Chernobyl, I mean, his previous credits have been Scary Movie 3, Scary Movie 4, Hangover
I remember
2.
when Chernobyl came out and people sort of went back through it thinking, oh my God, I need to watch everything this guy's ever done.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, maybe I don't need to watch Scary Movie. But he's so amazing. And it's just a question of, and obviously now is co-creator of The Last of Us. But so he's so incredible, and it's such a sort of testament to just keeping going. And you learn so much, and as people often say, you learn more off the failures than you do off the successes.
Well, that's it. So Nick Santora, he'd had failures of his own. Things like Scorpions didn't massively trouble the scorers, but he'd done things like Law and Order, which you just have to keep writing. Boom, you have to keep churning them out. And when you've got that skill set, and then he finds something like Reacher, which feels it's absolutely in his wheelhouse, because Reacher is very sort of macho, but it's kind of funny. Reacher knows he's a joke. Reacher understands his own irony, and Nick Santora writes that very, very well. There's lots of, however much it might sort of feel like an episode of the A-Team, it's like he's all 4 members of the A-Team in one, Reacher, and Nick Santora deals with that incredibly well.
They were lucky with him. They were very lucky.
Alan Richardson.
Yeah, Alan Richardson I think he's a really interesting person in lots and lots of ways. He's had that is someone who was around for a long time and went through a lot of stuff. And he's really interesting because he's very open about things, and he's got a lot. We talk about screen persona, and I'm sorry, Tom Cruise's screen persona just isn't, in my view, compatible with the character of Jack Reacher.
Yeah, Jack Reacher has to hide an awful lot all of the time.
But he's obviously a very moral person, and that sort of sense of not really fitting in. And, that is the whole point. He is the wandering hero.
Yeah,
and
there are
a stranger rides into town, that old fictional archetype of the hero, the Joseph Campbell archetype, that is Reacher. And I find him very interesting as an actor because of the way he talks. I mean, he says things like, first of all, he's very Christian. He says, but he says, he hates the church, lots of the established church in many, many ways. He finds it disgusting. He says really openly, I think it's, when you think about who's watching this show, it's just ridiculous. Donald Trump's like the worst person in the world. He's a rapist and a criminal, and I can't believe that the Christian right has sort of pretended that he's one of their people. He says, I'm bipolar. He says, oh, yeah, of course I take testosterone. How do you think it's amazing that he's a very sort of candidly troubled. He's such a perfect fit. And he is very, very tall. He's actually sort of 6'2", which is basically a giant in television terms, with President Company accepted. But in general, he can, this is why he can look taller than anybody.
He is super ripped though. I love it whenever he takes all his clothes off, which he does sometimes.
Which you have to do once an episode for various reasons.
Yeah, well, he's only got one set of clothes, Reacher. He's got one set of clothes and a toothbrush. But I love it when he has to take his clothes off. He's always got these like slim black pants on. And there's always a woman around. The woman is literally just going, they're always just going, just have to slightly look away and just go, okay. It's like you can't stare directly at the sun.
Yeah. But it is hugely successful. And again, we mentioned this before when we talked slightly about it in the context of various other shows. You don't read 1 million articles about it. It's not all over everywhere. You don't see, and yet it just is miles and by far and away the most watched thing. Yeah,
by a million miles. And they're doing a spin-off, which unsurprisingly, Frances Neely, who was the private eye who used to be in his army unit, they're doing a spin-off with her as well, which I imagine would be an enormous hit. But yeah, so the biggest show on streaming in America. And shall we go through the rest of the 10? I just wanted to sing the praises of Nick Santora there, because I think sometimes when you see a show like that, everyone can talk about Alan Richardson, everyone can talk about Lee Child, and sometimes it's so many things that go from page to screen don't work, and you get someone like Nick Santora, and it's just impressive what he's done, the apprenticeship he served, and then he goes, right, this I've got this one.
All those things contributed to
this. So in the rest of that top 10, I'll pick up a couple. You might pick up different ones. Family Guy is number 2.
Well, I thought Family Guy was tied with Bluey.
but I think it's just on.
Is it just over?
Yes,
yeah. I mean, Family. I mean, that says a lot.
Well, it says a couple of things. The reason Family Guy is there, well, lots of reasons. It's huge, but there's a lot of episodes because they, as you say, they do it per minute viewed, and it's billions and billions and billions, and the streamers have in the same way that the streamers have just worked out that they can schedule things at particular times of the week, and the streamers have worked out they can put adverts in their programs. The streamers are just working out it would be great to start having returning series with lots and lots of episodes in it, which of course was the network business model forever, because they're seeing, if you've got Family Guy, Gunsmoke, which hasn't been on since the 60s, recently went into the streaming top 10. Gunsmoke, because there's 400 episodes. Yeah. And if you get hooked on it, you just keep watching forever and ever. So one of the big new calls they're having now is bring us returnable series, bring us things that can come back, bring us things where we can do 13 episodes and that are episodic and that are set somewhere, and that we can that there's kind of cost effective for us to do. And they are literally step by step. Yeah,
bring us network television libraries.
Turning into network television. Exactly that. Well, because they're absolutely eting through the libraries of these things. And we'll all, in the same way we still listen to the Beatles, we're still going to be watching Friends in 30 or 40 years' time. But you do slightly have to keep, putting new things into the pool. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah, Bluey, almost identical with Family Guy, which is incredible, isn't it? Again, making programs for kids is a huge deal still.
The White Lotus was at 4, which I think is huge. I remember just before the season started, we were saying to each other, is the White Lotus sort of big enough that we might even do it before it's actually on air?
Yeah.
And the answer, before, lots of these shows that get lots of buzz, they're not actually that high rating.
Yeah.
And lots of things on HBO, which get huge amount of buzz and a lot of awards, don't actually rate very highly. But the White Lotus, has just completely tipped over now into some sort of kind of massive phenomenon that it should be up there at 4, because yes, by the way, it gets an unbelievable amount of coverage because people just write about it. It gets free advertising all the time because people write about feuds between cast members or, this has broken every taboo or whatever it is, that you get this constant free kind of media coverage, which you don't get for Reacher, you don't get for all these other things. But it's interesting that has now gone, that's gone stratospheric.
And in the rest of the top 10, there's things like 1923, which is one of the Taylor Sheridan shows. Moana 2 is up there, and Moana 2 is really the biggest thing. It's just per billion minutes. Yeah. There's only one of them. Love is Blind is the only reality show up there, but number 9 on this list, number 9 in the top 10. Number 10 is Severance, by the way, and number 9 on this list. Now, America is a big country. Yeah. It's like the big entertainment capital of the world. It's absolutely enormous in every way. Number 9 on the list, Adolescence. Yeah. Wow.
Well, that again, once something becomes a sort of cultural phenomenon, and the controversy or the discourse of it all just takes on a life of its own, then. And I thought that, once you start that, it's so propulsive, you'll continue with it. So, but to get people into that is kind of phenomenal. But it was like that with Baby Reindeer.
Yeah.
Suddenly, everyone had a view on this thing, and you sort of feel like you have to watch it. And if it is sufficiently propulsive, and Baby Reindeer was sort of helped in lots of ways, I think, by the fact that you could just binge it really quite quickly, because whatever it was, 7.5 hours, or some of them were a bit longer. But the same with Adolescence, you couldn't take your eyes off it once you were in. So.
But again, if you're Netflix, it is all well and good, and Adolescence is all well and good. But if you can have an Adolescence where you can do 8 episodes, and then you can do another 8, and then another 8, and another 8, that's the real dream. I mean, Severance, you can sort of they can keep kind of slightly going back to where they were, but Reacher, you can do episodes of Reacher forever until Adam Richardson says no to it. So it's that thing of, it's great having these sort of real marquee shows that everyone's talking about, but if you can have a marquee show that everyone's talking about and it can come back and back and back and back, that's the business the streamers are now in. If you go to see any streamer, that's the thing they're looking for. They're not looking for some big thing that they can put a massive star in and it runs for 4 episodes and it costs more than 3 movies put together. They are saying, bring me a big star, but in the same way that used to sign them up for 7 seasons in sitcoms in the US and drama series, give us a show and we'll tie the star in for a number of seasons. And that's the thing I think that's going to change massively in Netflix. Can I say one final thing about Lee Child?
Yes.
He I've talked before about how I name my characters. He names so many of his characters after Aston Villa players. It's amazing. In his very first book, The Killing Floor, which is great. If you've not read Jack Reacher, you really can start from the very beginning, The Killing Floor. But in there, he's got Mayor Teal. He's named after Sean Teal, the Aston Villa player. Even in the second book, he's got Paul McGrath, which is a direct name.
Just a direct left.
He's got a character called Milosevic, which people assumed was named after the war criminal Slobodan Milosevic, but was named after Savo Milosevic, the Aston Villa striker. He's got Skimeka. He's got Wyeth from Peter Wyeth, Gary Shaw. He's got Carboni. He's got a character called Graham Taylor. So he knows loads and loads of his characters after that. But as so often, we save the very best, the very biggest stories till last. Now, an awful lot of things have happened since this podcast began. The world has changed in lots of ways.
Yeah.
Politically, in the world of entertainment. We live in a slightly different world than we did way back when. But I think of all the things that have ever happened, this story might be the biggest.
Yeah, and I mean, why wasn't it on the front pages of a lot of places? Catch up, guys, because Glen Powell has launched a sauce brand. Let me tell you what he'll do you, Richard. It's called Smash Kitchen. He'll do you...
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, Smash Kitchen. He'll do you a yellow mustard, a Dijon mustard. Yeah. He'll do a ketchup. He'll do you a hot honey ketchup.
Hot honey
He'll
ketchup.
do you an American barbecue sauce. Your stripper name. Yeah. He'll give you an American barbecue sauce, a hot honey barbecue sauce, mayo and spicy mayo. And I'll tell you what he'll do, Richard, which is what makes this interesting, is that he will sell it via Walmart at an affordable price. None of that will cost you any more than $4.79, and some of it will cost as little as $2. Now...
Sorry, did we go to adverts?
Yes. No, none of this is sponsored. But although, if Glenn, if you do want to sponsor, please get in touch.
Send us some sauce.
Just anyway, get in touch.
You have to really just make sure it's sealed before you send it over. You don't want.
Well, I'm sure that he will have taken care of every detail, Richard. Yeah. Now, this is selling through Walmart, which I think is really interesting, and I'll get into that in a minute. But because lots of celebrities have got artisan this and that brands, haven't they? If Brooklyn Beckham does a hot sauce, and he has done one, especially curated in it. Yeah, he's got a hot sauce.
I'm not a hot sauce guy.
Oh my God, I absolutely love hot sauce.
Yeah.
I have many hot sauces, but yeah.
I have many hot sauces.
But this is the one I want most, by the way.
All right, Woodward and Bernstein.
I'm going. Now listen. Okay, so he had a big launch party, and he had it in Beverly Hills or wherever it was in Hollywood, and they had lots of sort of fancy celebrities went along, and they had a French fries station, but whatever. So they did all the sort of glitzy side of it, and had various. Gwyneth Paltrow unboxed some on whatever. It's organic. This thing.
DiCaprio was there. I saw
DiCaprio.
Yeah. You've made it in Hollywood if you do sauces.
Stella McCartney. Yeah. I think it's just like random famous people in town that night.
But you think about the stuff DiCaprio must get invited to.
Yeah.
It must be sort of non-stop.
He's got something, Richard. I'm telling you, he's got something.
Powell.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sure has.
Now, why has he done this? Now, again,
because his food was too bland.
He's got a backstory. Like we made. You always have to have the backstory. Yeah. We all made sauces growing up. My sister reminded me of my own. I made my own hot honey ketchup at 7 years old. We slather sauces on everything. The family were all there. And
so his backstory is, I come from a family that used sauce.
That we made lots of sauce. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Look, it's will this do, and it will do. Yes, it will do.
Because I put a lot of vinegar on my chips, and I've yet to release a wine range.
Well, marketers, please get in touch. Richard would like to partner on a vinegar range.
Sarsens, come and get me.
Yeah, big Sarsens will be after you.
I would love
now listen, but he anyway. But what he's really saying with this is, of all the things he could do, I mean, obviously people do luxury things all the time, or they do high-end alcohol brands, or they partner with things all the time, celebrities. This, to me, is different, not just because it's Glen Powell. But, what he's saying is, I'm from Texas, I'm from the great state of Texas, we love barbecue, I'm for everyone.
Yeah.
I am at a price point everyone can afford.
Yeah.
We're still talking about the sauce, I think.
Yes.
I'm a price point for red, state and blue. Once again, those very helpful Sydney Sweeney romance rumours I see have, reanimated.
Yeah.
Can't believe it myself. However, again, the red state king and queen, they were and we're for everybody. And what I think about this is really interesting is that it's mass produced. It's for Walmart. He said, my long-term intention is to change every kitchen staple.
Wow.
You're an actor. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's 2025. They have to all talk like this.
Yeah, but also that's why I went into acting.
Yeah, but nothing's going to cost more than $4 or $5. But he said no one in our country is more than 10 minutes away from a Walmart, and it's almost 30% of the grocery market. Again, he is an actor, but we all talk like this in the year 2025, which I sort of love. What he's saying is, I'm a mass-produced mainstream star, because he does want to get back. Remember, I always tell you that Glen Powell wants to get back to like that, whatever Expendables he was in, Expendables 3, and he was with all the guys, and they were all saying to me, oh no, this is what it's like being a movie star in the 90s. It's like, he can't believe it. He wants to tunnel his way back to that level of kind of mass appeal. So Glen Powell is this source, Richard, I suppose what I am saying in lots of ways. Yeah. But I'll tell you what it reminds, because it's such a sort of direct callback to it. Also, so much of the things he does are sort of, that character in Top Gun Maverick, when he's sort of trying to, basically sort of trying to do not a simulacrum of Val Kilmer, but a bit of one. And then this one, Newman's Own Sauce. Remember Paul Newman? Yeah. The story of Newman's Own Sauce is quite interesting. He started it with a writer called A.E. Hotchner, who was Hemingway's biographer. Okay. And they one Christmas, they like in some barn that Paul Newman, they thought, well, we was constantly talking about salad dressing. We make it, we'll bottle it for all our friends.
They were constantly talking about salad dressing.
Hotchner's very funny about it. It's like he would ring me the whole time, just wanted to talk about salad dressing. I was like, we've got to do something with this. Anyway, so they make this sauce, they give it to some friends, everybody loves it. They keep talking about it, and he's like, okay, let's think how we do this. Martha Stewart sets up a sort of blind taste test with proper judges. It's all done like by the book. Everyone puts this Newman's Own Sauce, which is a salad dressing, I think the first one they do, first, and then apart from two who put it as second. So they're like, okay, fine. So they become a company that day. They make $1 million in their first year. Paul Newman didn't want his face anywhere on it, if you've actually seen the bottles of it, because it was a mass-produced item. Yep. Again, it went into every American supermarket.
And he was like a proper big A-list scarcity value star.
Unbelievable. But he and one of the great movie stars. But he hated what he called noisy philanthropy. So he said, I don't want to be on this, and he didn't even want them to put 100% of profits, which they still all go to charity.
Oh, do they?
Okay, I don't know. Smash Kitchen's profits, the whereabouts of them have not been specified, so I think they perhaps go to Glen Powell and his business partners. Yeah. But anyway,
fair enough. That's a traditional way to do business. But I get it.
But even back then, they were inventing all the stories on the packaging. So there was a thing that he said. There was organic pretzels, and it said, "My daughter. I had to forfeit my house to my daughter when she came up with a better." I said, "You couldn't come up with an organic pretzel," and she did, and I had to give her my house. And the daughter's like, "Yeah, no, that's not true." But and then he said some of them were stupid. They were like, I bought this spicy pasta sauce back myself from hell. Okay. So there were ones like that.
I remember for my book, The World Cup of Everything, I was doing chain restaurants, and I was looking into Frankie and Benny's. I love doing things like that. Yeah. And the Frankie and Benny's menu is all kind of, and Francisco and Benedicto came over from Napoli in the 1920s, and I sort of looked them up, and it was established in Leicester in 1995 or something. Okay.
Yeah, tell me I'd like to know a lot more about Jack Daniel's Hollow than is on the posters. Yeah, exactly. Every time I'm standing on a tube platform and I read about it, I'm like, I'd love to visit it. It'd be like a horrible facility.
Every brand should start. It was 2021 when two venture capitalists had noticed that tequila was doing particularly well, and they thought, how can we elbow into this market?
It's that sweet sip in private equity. Yeah. Well, okay, but Glen Powell is the source. This is what I'm trying to say to you, that he is trying to be a mass market. So I find it absolutely hilarious that of all the, and also just that actors have to talk like that nowadays, which I just find genuinely hysterical. But
do you think, should I tell you why I think it is? Because back in the day, they could be paid $20 million a movie. Yeah. Right?
And Glenn knows that because he's gone on The Expendables 3.
And what do you think he's on a movie? 8?
Yeah.
Something like
maybe
that.
Less.
So he's got to think, how do I make $12 million a year? I'm just literally thinking, I'm in a business where it used to be I would be paid $40 million a year. I'm currently being paid $18 million a year. So I feel $22 million
but he sells it. He sells it. I believe every single word about this story. He's from the great state of Texas.
Yeah, heard of it.
He's not part of Hollywood. No. All of it actually contributes to the same overall brand. So whoever is Glen Powell's sort of brand supremo, and there'll be about 50 of them on a team. That's another thing. You've got to pay those people. So whoever's creating the world of Glen Powell.
It was around about 2023 when 3 brand consultants working for Glen Powell had the bright idea that he could
creative artist agency. One of them,
and they go, Glenn, please, is it any story about sauce from your childhood, just anything at all. We go, I think once I mixed up a couple of sauces at home and I got in trouble. Yeah, so you invented your own sauce.
I did 2 sachets.
I guess so. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, occasionally I would put mustard and ketchup, like from the same thing on the same burger. So you made sauces.
But his aim is quite simply to change every single kitchen staple. And they're going to have others. There's going to be more. I am here for every second of this rollout across Walmart and hopefully across the Atlantic Ocean. Actually, I'm going to America in early June, and I'm going, if you don't think I'm bringing back some Glen Powell sauce. Yeah, I'm going to New York, and I'm sure. Will they have it? Will it be available bi-coastally? I'm not sure, because it's available in Walmart, also, but I'll see if I can find one in Manhattan.
By the way, like they're going to let you in.
Yeah. Have you any recommendations?
I do. Interior Design Masters has started again on BBC One with Alan Carr and Michelle Agundahin. And it's just a well-made show where someone gets kicked off every week, but you get to see lots of interior design, and you can go, that radiator is absolutely going to see you on Michelle's sofa. I'm so sorry. It's a really lovely bit of TV, the sort of thing we're going to miss in a few years' time. So let's enjoy it while we can. Thank you very much. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. It was lovely.
Yeah.
We will be back with a questions and answers episode on Thursday. And also, if you're a part of our membership club, which you can join by signing up to therestersentertainment.com, we have part 2 of our 2-part series on the island of Dr. Moreau, one of the most catastrophic film productions of all time. Other than that, we will see you on Thursday.
See you on Thursday, everyone.
See you on Thursday.